Let's see here. So, living thus in a state of nature and existing on what nature provides, he has in himself the wildness of that nature. True, he was credited by the fastidious onlookers of the South also with certain greatness. He is capable of great devotion. He will risk his life for the sake of a chance guest whose only claim upon him is the fact that he came last evening to the dwelling of his host and spent the night upon his couch. The women often exhibit an instinctive horror of anything that could in any way degrade them. But in reality, the barbarian knows absolutely nothing of such qualities as faithfulness and keeping to a given word. The power of distinction, which is the mark of true humanity, is something he entirely lacks. It never occurs to him that anything could be good by eternal law. He has no laws, and when he does what is good, his action is dictated solely by natural instinct. So, what is Wilhelm saying right here? He's saying the Romans depict this tribe as something that's barbaric because they act more on instinct than the Romans. But if you look at it in that context, if you just call something, a culture or a tribe, barbaric, of course they're going to seem barbaric, right? But if you're saying that they are more in tune with their instincts compared to the civilized Romans, it makes you wonder who is more capable of being human. The people who have to abide by their civilization and their laws, or the people who abide more by the laws of instinct and nature. Now that's not to say the Teutons were acting that way. We'll find out more about how they truly act. We're still in the eye of the Romans. These Germanic peoples live and move in hordes, or tribes, or whatever we may call them. They have some sort of kings, and something in the nature of a general assembly, which all men capable of bearing arms attend. So that's an interesting point, right? So they're saying that they're lawless. They're saying that they abide by nothing. And yet, they have kings. And any man capable of bearing arms, and this doesn't clarify if men is a species or a gender. So I don't want to assume that quite yet. But this is saying all men capable of bearing arms may attend this meeting where it's a general assembly where obviously laws are discussed. That doesn't sound uncivilized or barbaric to me at all. But we should be chary of supposing anything properly answering to a state institution as understood among civilized people. So they're saying, regardless of how they're doing it, they're barbaric. It's not like a Roman republic or a democracy or a, what have you. It's not as civilized as their form of government. See, this is part of the problem with people thinking they're correct all the time, is they tend to take their culture and the way they were raised and they view everything else as wrong instead of trying to understand where they are coming from and using that or assimilating or trying to understand the good in these concepts. That's what I love about Wilhelm's writing in this first section. He's talking about the Romans and the Greeks, excuse me, and how they, of course they're right. They're always right. And that's why Christianity was such a prolific religion when it started, taking over Europe, because of this type of thinking. Seems to me already that the Teutons, even allowing the Romans in, were more of an accepting people than the Romans were. Even though the Romans were the ones who were writing about the Teutons. Maybe? I don't know. Let's continue. The king has no real authority. The warriors obey him today and turn their back on him defiantly tomorrow. One day their king may lead them forth on any reckless enterprise. The next, they may be scattering, despite his orders, and in defiance of all political prudence, to their separate homes. And in their assembly, the method of procedure is simply that he who can use the most persuasive words wins over all the rest. It's interesting. He who can use the most persuasive words wins over all the rest. Funny part about that is that seems like politics worldwide all the time. What's your opinion? The warriors clash their weapons, and the matter is decided. They are like children in regard to coaxing and gifts, but fickle and ungovernable in regard to anything like obligation, indisposed to recognize any definite rule and order. Briefly, in the view of the Roman citizen, these Germanic tribes are a people of strongly marked light and shade in character. For such words as virtue and page 3 of the introduction. And vice. Good and evil cannot be used of them by anyone with a linguistic conscience. The Roman may speak of their natural pride, their stubborn defiance, proof even against the chains of their conquerors' triumphs. But such words as majesty, nobility, he will unconsciously reserve for himself and his equals. Here and there, among the highest types of classical culture, we may find a half aesthetic, half humane sympathy for these children of the wild. But even this is in its origin identical with the layman's mingled fear and hatred, inasmuch as it regards its object as a piece of wild nature itself. In the midst of their civilization, men could feel a spasm of wistful admiration in the face of nature for the primeval force of life, the power that rushes on without knowing whither. Man at the pinnacle of his splendor might ponder in melancholy, wise upon the happy lot of nature's children playing in the mire far below, a state which he himself, for better or worse, could never reach. So, to me, that's Wilhelm saying the Romans are almost jealous. They wish they could be more like the Teutons. Tacitus, the Romantic, voiced the praises of the simple life in the personal style of the decadent period, which originally twists and turns a phrase, and a vocabulary of the very rarest words that he could find. He does not beautify his savage artificially, makes no attempt to show him as wiser or better clad than he is in fact. On the contrary, he is at pains to point out few and simple are the needs of savage life. His enthusiasm is expressed in the most delicate phrases. Among the Germani, he declares good customs are of more avail than are good laws elsewhere. Interest and usury are unknown to them, and thus they eschew the vice more fervently than if it were forbidden. So what is he saying here? He's saying in Tacitus's poem that he writes about the culture of the Teutons. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the description of the Teuton tribe. He's essentially saying Tacitus in his poem is saying that even if a rule were written in stone that the people within this tribe would heed a warning from an elder, a friend, a family member more than that law written in stone. They have more respect for what people say and the advice that they give rather than the laws that are written permanently. To me, that's just wild, because we lose that sort of thing every single day in our culture. You know, simple manners are few and far between. You know, even if you wrote a law that said you have to say thank you, otherwise you'll go to jail for 5 years, I can guarantee you people still wouldn't do it. It's one of those things. You know, it's as simple as being aware of the world around you, right? So there's a difference between being aware of the world around you and acting accordingly. Getting out of the way of people in the grocery store. Moving over of people that are driving behind you faster than you are. You know, common courtesy, those types of things, right? Versus having to be told. We're becoming a world where we have to be told more about things and how to do things, rather than being aware of the world around us. So it's almost as if the Romans were viewing this culture completely backwards. They have to live by laws, and without those laws, it's complete chaos. Yet, here's a culture, here's a tribe that's living without the written law. Of course they have rules, and of course they have law. Of course, you know, there's a king that's going to say X, Y, Z, and there will be consequences. But the fact that they hold those values higher than written rules makes them possibly more advanced than the Romans and Greeks. More advanced than us, in my opinion. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to try and do these videos in 10-minute intervals. If you would like me to do more, let me know in the comments. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out. It makes me more apt to do more of these things. We're not very far into this book, so there's plenty more to come, and I would like your guys' feedback, your comments. Rate, comment, subscribe, share the video. It helps me out. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.